Welcome to English Grammar with Lucent Institute, the phrase, Part 1. Today we're going to study the prepositional phrase and phrases containing verbals. Now, this particular lesson and the next particular class will be in two parts. So relax, sit back, and let's begin talking about the prepositional phrase. First, let's talk about what a phrase is. A phrase is a group of words not containing a verb and its subject. A phrase is used as a single part of speech. So it has multiple functions, but it is not a complete sentence. It's just a couple of words that convey something. The prepositional phrase is a group of words beginning with a preposition and ending with a noun or a pronoun. Now let's remember what a noun and a pronoun are. A noun is a person, place, or thing, and a pronoun is a word that replaces a person, place, or thing. So it's a he, she, it, they, them, those kinds of things. So it's a word that actually replaces a noun. So a prepositional phrase is a group of words that has a beginning with a preposition and ends with a noun or a pronoun. Let me give you an example. For Lisa and you, the preposition is for. See, for is the preposition that begins this, and Lisa and you are the nouns. Because again, Lisa is a proper name and you being a pronoun. In the same way, in the park. Park is the noun, in is the preposition. And once more, after the game. After being a preposition and the game being the noun. So if you see, these are not complete sentences. They don't have a complete thought, but they are a part of a thought and part of a written language. So writers and you and I will use these all the time. And what they are called is a prepositional phrase. The prepositional phrase, the noun or pronoun that concludes the prepositional phrase is the object. Now remember, we have talked a little bit about the object. The object is what is being spoken about or what is being read about in the sentence, in the phrase. So when you see a noun and you see a pronoun, you can automatically assume that within that phrase, that group of words, that is what is important about this particular phrase. So the noun or pronoun that concludes the prepositional phrase is the object of the preposition. For, that, to, that begins the phrase. For an example, on the way. Well, on is the preposition, way is the noun. And this whole phrase, on the way. From Angela and me. So from is a preposition and Angela and me is the noun. And then with a shout. With is the preposition and shout is the noun or the object of the prepositional phrase. Prepositional phrases are usually used as modifiers. Now remember, what a modifier is a modifier is something that adds meaning, explains something a little bit better in words. So prepositional phrases are usually used as modifiers. As adjectives, those are words that assist nouns. Or adverbs, those are words that assist or describe or better explain verbs. They add flavor, they add color, they add meaning, they add description. All those two things, those two categories of parts of speech, they add all the different kinds of things that you need when you are reading, so that it gives meaning. And occasionally a prepositional phrase is used as a noun. Now that's an interesting concept. Now remember, English is very loosely tied. It has rules, but those rules can be changed and modified so that it gives more freedom to the reader and more freedom to the writer. So when you are reading and writing, you can use prepositional phrases as part of a noun. An example of this: before lunch, we will be convenient. All right, well, before lunch. Before lunch is this prepositional phrase, and lunch is the noun of the sentence. Will be. So the prepositional phrase is the subject of the sentence. It is used as a noun, before lunch. Well, lunch being a specific period of time, and then will be being the verb, and then convenient finishing the phrase out. The ejective phrase. An ejective phrase is a prepositional phrase that modifies a noun or a pronoun. Again, thinking back to those parts of speech that we've been talking about, an adjective modifies or replaces nouns. It builds upon the nouns or the pronouns. Nouns being a person, place, or thing, and pronouns being words that replace nouns, but keep their meaning. So an ejective phrase is a prepositional phrase that modifies a noun or a pronoun. Tucson has been the locale of many westerns. Well, Tucson is the noun, has been the locale of many westerns. Well, that particular area right there is a prepositional phrase. It's an ejective phrase because it's talking about Tucson. Has been the locale. Well, the locale is talking about a location, talking about a place. And it's talking about Tucson. Tucson is the word, is the noun. Now this is interesting because you see the noun is up front and then follows the prepositional phrase. In the same way, tourists from the east visit the old frontier towns in the west. Tourist. This is the big noun. This is what the whole sentence is really talking about. From the east visit the old frontier towns in the west. Well, none of that makes any sense whatsoever if you don't have the word tourist. If you don't have that word right there, the whole sentence is missing something. And it's just like, well, what? It will leave you going, what? But from the east. From the east is a prepositional phrase because you see this trigger word. This trigger word right here says from. From is a trigger word. So you'll begin reading sentences and you'll begin seeing prepositional phrases begin with certain words, and you got to key in on it. You got to look really hard sometimes, and then remember what we're talking about, because from clues you in. From the east, visit the old frontier towns in the west. Well, from the east here is the prepositional phrase, and so what are they? What is from the east talking about? Well, from the east is actually talking about tourists, which is the noun. It's the noun right here. So you have this noun, and they are from the east. It's giving more information. It's giving description to the sentence. It's telling you more about them. Tourists from the east. Well, it's an ejective phrase. An adverb phrase, and remembering what an adverb is a word, this word right here is a part of speech that actually does the exact same thing that an adjective does, but only for verbs and for adjectives and for other adverbs. So the adverb has a little more flexibility, whereas the adjective can only modify nouns and pronouns. The adverb modifies verbs and adjectives and other adverbs itself. So it's really a more flexible kind of part of speech. It's really a fun one if you're looking at the puzzle. So let me give you a couple of examples of an adverb phrase. Now remember, these phrases are only good if they have a noun or a pronoun, okay, with a verb. Okay, so here's how we are. So let's look. Let's diagram real quick. So Tina. Tina is a proper name, so it's a noun. And then if we were to actually sentence diagram this, let's just sentence diagram this. So we draw a line. Yep, there's the whole sentence. You break it right there. So you would have your subject and your predicate. Remember those words? It's been a little while, but don't forget them, because when we are using them, we're building block upon block upon block until we see the broad stroke of the whole language, and we can use it with clarity and with extreme meaning. The subject and the predicate, the subject being Tina and the predicate exercises with care, but it's also more than that, because here we have an adverb phrase, exercises with care. Now, exercises is the verb here, because what is a verb? A verb is an action of the noun. So Tina is the noun, and what is she doing? She's exercising with care. Now, with care is also really the adverb phrase. You see, with care here is an adverb, and I'm not going to write it all out, but phrase. So with care is the adverb phrase. Now, what is so significant about this? Because in this one little adverb phrase, in this sentence, this simple sentence, you have now discovered how. How does Tina exercise? She exercises with care, because the adverb phrase tells us. It gives us more detail, more description, more meaning and substance to the sentence. And it doesn't require a whole lot of work or big words, big fancy words out of a thesaurus. No, it just requires a little more detail. And so that is where the value of an adverb phrase comes from. She exercises before a meet. Okay, well, this is extremely important. So she is still the noun. It's a pronoun, so it's still the subject. And if we were going to divide that up, is she, and then exercises before a meet. Tells us the rest of it. It's the subject. It's still the predicate. You see how this all kind of works? We're still easily able to picture what the noun is and what the predicate is. What the subject is, what the predicate is. But here's the thing. Exercises is still our verb, because it's still showing the action of what she's doing before a meet, therefore becomes the adverb phrase. Before a meet becomes the adverb phrase. And so here you go. And now it tells us when she meets. So whereas Tina exercises with care told us how she exercised, now we know when she exercises. She exercises in the gym. Oh dear, here we go again. See how cool this thing is? These adverb phrases, therefore, show us all kinds of different things. And it's so easy just to change a few words, like in the gym being the adverb phrase. Well, the gym is a location, not a piece of jewelry, or not a precious stone, but a gym where they have workout facilities and treadmills and weight benches and all those things. The gym. So she, again, is the pronoun. Exercises in the gym is the predicate. So you have your subject, you have your predicate. And then exercises is still the verb, but now in the gym is talking about exercises. It's talking about where this action is happening. But here we go. It's where. It gives us specific detail. In the gym, it gives us the specific location of her exercise routine. She exercises to her capacity. Whoa, here we go again. Same format, same subject and predicate right there. So you have the she, which is a pronoun, which is your subject, and you have predicate, which is exercises to her capacity. But here we go. The exercises is the same, but to her capacity then tells us to what extent she exercises. And that's a big deal because that gave meaning to her exercises. In the same way, she exercises for her health. Well, this tells us why. So you see, we kind of covered all our bases. We did the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and the how. And so now we understand that through these adverb phrases, we are able to give so much meaning. We're able to talk about her for her health, to her capacity, where it happened in the gym, before a meet, when she exercises, and with care, how she exercises. All these things, the how, the when, the where, and the to what extent, are all answered by the adverb phrase. A great little piece of English language. Phrases containing verbals. Now, try not to get confused in this part. These parts of speech, such as the prepositional phrase, the participle, which languages have, and this one has a present and a past participle. But try not to get hung up on this. These are very, very normal uses. Less common than the prepositional phrase, but still very useful to a writer, are verbal phrases. The participle phrase, the gerund phrase, and the infinitive phrase. Okay, so real quick, just recognize that the participle phrase, the gerund phrase, and the infinitive phrase, those three phases, while they are not as common as the prepositional phrase, they are a part of the English language, but they are not difficult to understand. And yes, they seemingly on the surface level have a ton of rules that you have to use and you have to understand, but it's very, very simplistic. It's very, very easy to understand. So do not get confused when we cover a lot of slides over this and think that this is more difficult than it really is. A participle is a verb form that can be used as an adjective. That is pretty simple. A participle. It's a verb form. Well, reminding yourself what a verb is. A verb is an action of a noun or a pronoun. It shows that it's doing something. Bo ran across the room. Well, ran is the verb for Bo. Bo is the noun. That would be me. Running across the room is the action that I took. A participle is the verb that can be used as an adjective. So the participle can then become that added, juicy, delicious information in a sentence that helps the verb, that assists the noun. Okay? So it's a verb form that can be used as an adjective. So it can be used, these things look like verbs, but they assist the noun and the pronoun. An example. The rapidly developing storm. I'm missing the word storm here. I'm sorry, folks. It should have the rapidly developing storm, S-T-O-R-M. Sorry. Kept small boats in port. Okay, so here we go. Developing is that participle. It's interesting because you see how it added meaning. It added meaning because it's talking about how is it doing it? Well, it's developing. It's not a full-on storm. No, it's developing. It's in stages. It started off small, but it's starting to get bigger. It's like a hurricane. They don't start out as a classified five hurricane. No, it's small, and then it builds and builds and builds. So the rapidly developing storm kept small boats in port. Now, interestingly enough, you can use this word. You can change the participle position, and it changes the meaning, but also assists the sentence. So developing rapidly, the storm kept small boats in port. So you can change the placement of the participle developing, and it will also strengthen your sentence. So developing, still the participle, rapidly, the storm kept small boats in port. Now, what is the noun? The noun is the storm. We know this because it has an article, the. This word right here. The, T-H-E, is the article, and it always kind of points to the subject or the noun in the story. So in the sentence. So we're talking about the storm. And what is it doing? Developing is assisting the storm. Well, here the rapidly developing, and it would have been storm up here, S-T-O-R-M, talking about is assisting. It is giving more weight. It's acting as an adjective. It is strengthening the noun. It's talking about the noun or the subject of the sentence. The storm, here we go, developing rapidly. You see, it can go just before, it can go with the beginning, or it can come in the middle after the noun or after the subject. The storm developing rapidly kept small boats in the port. All three of these sentences say the exact same thing, but that word developing is a participle that can be placed in different places in the sentence, and it still maintains its meaning. It just adds flavor, it adds description, adds interest to your sentences. In these sentences, developing, which is formed from the verb develop, interesting how that works. Just adding the ing changes the phrase altogether, the verb form. So in these sentences, developing, which is formed from the verb develop, is used as an adjective modifying the noun storm. There are two kinds of participles: present participles and past participles. Now, I understand that several other written and oral languages around the world do not have these participles. They do not have a present and a past. But in the English language, we do have a past participle. Not to worry, not to stress. It does not change the usages. It just changes the way we use them. Okay? So a present participle, like those in the preceding examples ending in ing. Okay, this is a suffix, meaning it comes after the word. So, for example, swimming. Swim, when people jump into water and they begin to move in a specific art form, they swim. But here we go. The present participle, swimming. Now we have changed that word into a present participle. It's ending with the word ing. So that's easy. It's simple. And so swimming, or develop, like the word develop earlier. You had develop, D-E-V-E-L-O-P, develop. All right. Develop was a perfectly fine verb, but we change it into developing, the developing storm, the rapidly developing storm, and all of a sudden it is now a present participle. Okay, here it comes, the big ooh my. The past participle may end in the following endings, the following suffixes: ed, d, t, en, or in. Okay, such as asked, saved, dealt, eaten, or seen. Each one of these words have another word: ask, save, deal, eat, see. And see, they've all been modified into past participles, meaning that we in the English language, like so many languages, have a past, a present, and a future tense. And these are all, you didn't ask him if you could go. You asked him if you could go. Jesus didn't save the woman at the well presently. He saved the woman at the well previously, in the past. You wouldn't deal with somebody in the past. You dealt with somebody in the past. And so forth and so on. So the past participle really gives us that past tense in the participle form. So, an example, a present participle. We watched the puppies playing. Playing is the participle. Why? Because it is talking about the puppies. These puppies, these adorable puppies, we're watching them play. Yeah, I know it was tricky because you thought we were the subject, but no, actually the subject is puppies. That's what we're doing. We're watched, and there's the verb. We watched the puppies playing. Puppies are doing the action here. A past participle. The puppies exhausted. Oh, there's that little thing. In both of those cases, you can see it by their ending. The puppies exhausted collapsed in the grass. Now, look at this. Strange thing. Strange thing. Here in this particular sentence, exhausted is the past participle. Exhausted. But look at the verb here. Now, exhausted is an adjective in this particular case because that's what a participle is. It is simply a word that takes on a verb form like exhausted. Exhausted would be like a verb in the sense that he's exhausted. Well, exhausted is something that a person can be. And in this case, the puppies were exhausted. Great. Exhausted, though, further describes the puppy's condition, while collapsed is the verb. Because this is what the puppies did. They collapsed in the grass. So, the puppies collapsed. Now, if you'll notice, I did something right there. I circled those two things because they must be in agreement. When you're using the past participle, they must be in agreement. The participle and the verb must be in proper agreement. You can't have the puppies exhausted collapse in the grass. That's not the same tense. That's not the same the subject agreement or participle agreement. So they both need to be past tense. The puppies exhausted collapsed in the grass. Although participles are formed from verbs, they cannot be used by themselves as verbs. Wow. Okay. So participles are formed from verbs, meaning they're formed from words that show they give expression or action, but they are not themselves actually verbs, so they cannot be used by themselves. A participle may, however, be used with a helping verb to form a verb phrase. Very important, very important. Let me give you an example. The barking dogs followed the colts into the barn. Barking modifies dogs. Look at this. Look at this. This is the participle. This is talking about the dogs. What are the dogs doing? They're barking. That modifies dogs. It is technically a participle, barking. How did I recognize it? Well, obviously I gave the answer over here, but even without this, even without the answer over here, just forget that. Forget the answer is right there. Even without that answer, ing gives it away. Anytime you see ing, you can be thinking about a participle. It automatically starts talking about it. You start looking for them. So the barking dogs followed the colts into the barn. So let's look at how barking modifies dogs and how that one sentence can be changed up just a little bit to give you a verb phrase. The dogs were barking excitedly. Okay, well, again, you have that ing right there, ing. It's giving us a clue that, hey, this word right here is our participle. Yes, it's the participle. And barking is still talking about dogs, because I'm sorry, if you saw a human doing it, you'd be a little worried, but the dogs were barking excitedly. So the verb phrase, were barking, consists of the helping verb, were. Oh, yeah, because look, there's that helping verb. The dogs were barking excitedly. Were barking excitedly. Were puts those two together. The dogs being the noun and barking being the participle. Plus the present participle, barking. So you see how it all comes together. The verb phrase, were barking, consists of the helping verb, were, plus the present participle, barking. When participles are used in verb phrases, they are considered part of the verb and are not considered adjectives. Okay, so here's one of those quirky little things. If it is helping out a verb, if a participle is helping out a verb, I'm just breaking it down, putting it in simple terms. If a participle is helping out a verb phrase, then they're considered part of the verb and they are not considered adjectives, meaning they don't have to help the nouns. They're not labeled that same way. A participle phrase is a phrase containing a participle and any complements. Remember, complements also assist. They add further description, further meaning, further value to your sentences. They also are modifiers, a fair form of them, but they modify words inside of a sentence. They give a little bit more meaning. So a participle phrase is a phrase containing a participle and any complements or modifiers it may have. Let me give you an example. Removing his coat, Jack rushed into the river. Well, removing his coat is this participle phrase. Why do I know it's the participle, removing? Because ing is right there. ing. That always gives it away, always, for a present participle. Removing his coat, Jack rushed into the river. Well, what is removing his coat? Jack. Jack is the noun. That is a proper noun. And what did he do? He rushed. He rushed. That's the verb. Into the river. Now, the participle phrase is made up of the participle removing and the complement coat. Well, what is the complement? It's giving further meaning. Removing what? You have to have the complement, his coat. Otherwise, you wouldn't need the word removing. His coat would make no sense. Oh, sorry. My apologies. The participle phrase is made up of the participle removing and the complement coat, which is the direct object of removing. That's right. So you need that direct object. This removing is talking about his coat. Like verbs, participles may take an object. Hesitating there for a moment, he quickly grasped the situation. The participle phrase is made up of the participle hesitating. Yep, there's a participle. There for a moment. Well, plus its modifiers, there. So hesitating there is the modifier for a moment. And the adverb phrase, for a moment. Here's the adverb phrase. He quickly grasped. Grasp being the verb. The situation being the moment. Being the place. The event. The participle usually introduces the phrase, and the entire phrase acts as an adjective to modify a noun or a pronoun. So you could be expecting the participles to typically begin a sentence. So to be here in the beginning, and then everything else that follows is modifying some noun or pronoun. We saw Carl Lewis receiving his first gold medal in the 1984 Olympics. Well, again, here's your noun. Receiving. Who is receiving? Carl Lewis is receiving his first gold medal in the 1984 Olympics. Swaying rhythmically. The snake raised its head. Swaying being your participle. Rhythmically. What was the swaying doing? Swaying rhythmically. Rhythmically is modifying swaying. It's talking, it's giving a compliment. It's giving a little more information. It's not just doing this. Swaying is fine. But maybe it was like this. No, it's rhythmically. So you see, each thing in a sentence has a purpose for being there. Spread with white linen, the table glowed in the candlelight. Ooh, ooh, ooh. This is going to be a tricky one because this is a past participle. A past participle. All right, and how do we know it's a past participle? Glowed. So, spread with white linen. The table glowed. Glowed is the past participle. It's giving what? It's giving the what? The table glowed in the candlelight.